Hi there, Malcolm here with my 111th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you my September wrap-up and October TBR. I managed to finish 8 books in September and have an impressive pile for October. So let's get cracking. The first book I finished was The Stainless Steel Rat for President by Harry Harrison. This is part of the Stainless Steel Rat series. This is quite a way into the Stainless Steel Rat series. Jim and Angelina's children have grown up now, and very much part of the various exploits that they get up to. In this one, the population of our planet suffer under a dictatorship in all but name only. There's a corrupt politician who keeps winning his presidential elections. This was first published in 1982. Nothing's changed really, has it? And so our anti-hero goes to this planet and runs for presidency himself, using all the tricks that he has at his disposal. A feel-good book full of excessive drinking and some other antics as well. A really enjoyable series that by this point has started to feel a little bit stale. I think this is the last good one. I'd still buy it if I didn't have a copy. After that, I then finished Volume 2 of the X-Files in the Checker publication. These are the collected X-Files comics showing various short stories. The stories in here are okay. The first story follows Ball Lightning that's on a killer rampage. Then it's a photographer whose camera sucks the life force out of its victims. Yeah, very goosebumps, that one. And then there's a story of a mysterious killer killing a bunch of college friends, and then a coma patient goes on the killer rampage without ever leaving his bed, which we've seen in an X-Files episode before. So, not really treading any new ground. The artwork isn't too bad. Book 1 was pretty atrocious. This one is a lot better. It's not great, but it's better. Worth reading. And after that I read The Terminator Tempest. This is a direct sequel to the original Terminator story and was published before Terminator 2 came out. In this one, a team of soldiers go back in time to stop Armageddon taking place, and 4 Terminators are also sent back to stop them. So they've upped the Terminators, they've upped the amount of soldiers. The artwork's a little dated now, but it's still pretty good. And I really enjoy this story. Is it as good as Terminator 2? Of course it isn't, but certainly a better effort than all the other sequel attempts, barring perhaps the Sarah Connor Chronicles. And I really like this one. I first read this years ago, a friend of mine had it, and so much later when I saw it in a shop, I had to buy it, and I did. And after that I then read Eden by Tim Lebbon. This is a brand new book, came out this year, and was my book of the month. Now ordinarily I would film my own individual review video for the book of the month, but for reasons I have no idea, I haven't. I must have completely forgotten or something. So here we go. In this one, it's the not too distant future where efforts have been made to try and reclaim some of the natural world. So certain parts of the world have been barricaded off and nature has been allowed to just reclaim and regrow and renew. There's about 8 or so such sites around the planet. Entire populations have been displaced to make room for these enclosures, and they're completely no-go areas. No one's allowed in or out, and they're protected by guards with shoot-on-sight orders. Despite all that, there's a group of adventure runners who want to try and traverse every single one of these areas. And in this book, they've reached the oldest of all these enclosures, Eden, and we join this group as they sneak in. Now, I won't give away much more than that. Obviously, it's a Tim Lebbon book. You know it's not going to go well for them. But I must confess, I had no sympathy for any of them. Yes, there were certain relationships that were focused on, but they're all very stupidly breaking a very sensible law, and so I had no compassion towards any of them, and I felt they deserved everything they got. And there was nothing wrong with the relationships, but they felt quite natural, and I think had they not been doing anything quite so stupid, I would have liked them a lot more. And when things start kicking off, which is about 200 pages into the book, the story really does pick up. Not that it was overly slow before, but there was a lot of mystery and intrigue and tension building, but you can only have so much of it before it's like, well, come on, get on with it now, please. But yeah, the second half definitely flowed better. And this felt a lot like Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I've not read the book, but I have seen the film. I enjoyed it, but it's got that similar sort of group of people in a weird place where they're not really knowing what's going on. They know something bad's going to happen, they just don't know how or when. The climax of the book was okay. I suppose there were no real surprises, but it was fine how it played out. So yeah, I did enjoy it, but there was nothing particularly special, worth reading. And after that, I then read Hero by Michael Grant. It's the final book of the sequel trilogy to the Gone series, and so therefore the final book in the entire series so far. And in this one, another rock hits Earth, scattering its particles into a large chunk of the populace, and some of them develop special powers, and one individual decides to try and take over the world with it. And it's left with a team of heroes who survived the last 2 books to try and stop him. For the most part, it played out pretty much how the rest of the series has gone. You know, it doesn't shy from the violence, and the characters are enjoyable enough, but what let this down, and in fact almost destroys the entire series, is the ending, which I thought was just stupid. My own personal opinion, but It really ruined the whole thing for me. I think a subsequent book would very easily repair that damage, but it does make the sequel trilogy completely unnecessary. Yes, we get to see some of the characters from the original series, but they're very much secondary characters from the new characters introduced in the trilogy. And it finishes off with no real resolution, and like I say, with this series-breaking thing. Yes, it was worth reading, but on the whole, I think I'd prefer to stuck to the series. And after that, I then read Indiana Jones and the Secret of the Sphinx by Max McCoy. The previous book in the series I read was Indiana Jones and the White Witch, which was pretty awful. So I had very low expectations of this one. I was pleasantly surprised to find a Indiana Jones adventure in here. It hit all the right beats of a good Indiana Jones adventure. Indiana Jones has to try and find a thing before a bad guy finds a thing who wants to use the thing for bad things. The story flowed really well. The characters we know felt like the characters we know, and the new characters were also enjoyable. There are some callbacks to previous books in the series. I've only read one of them, so I did miss a couple of the callbacks because I didn't know what they were talking about. But they had no relevance to the plot, and so I didn't mind. So I managed to skip over those and just get on with the story and enjoy it, which I did. Buy it. And after that, I then read The X-Files Volume 3, another Checker publication. More collected X-Files comics with some other pretty good stories, as well as some TV episode novelizations or graphicalizations. So there's an organ donor who somehow comes back from the dead and reclaims all the organs that were donated. A bodyguard man who finds a magic coat which is able to suck the life force out of its victims and give it to him, and restoring him from his scarring. Quite similar to the camera one in the previous book, and another one that feels a little bit like a Goosebumps adventure. There's a camping one where an evil thing keeps killing all the children. Drags on a little bit too long, and the big reveal at the end is dubious at best. And then two of my favourite episodes in graphic form, Fire and Ice. In Fire, Mulder and Scully investigate some pyrotechnics as certain individuals spontaneously catch fire. And in Ice, they go to an ice station to find what happened to the crew there, and find there's a parasitic worm which makes people do things like kill each other. Really enjoyed reading them, except the artwork is so absolutely atrocious you can barely see what's going on. It's only because I know the episode so well that I was able to get some understanding from it. And here's Ice with virtually unidentifiable pictures. And it finishes off with a short story following an illustrator who uses cues from people around him to illustrate his drawings. However, once he's done so, that person disappears and is trapped in his drawing. Quite a clever little concept, but nothing we haven't seen before. And apparently Scully's blonde in this one, and doesn't look anything like Scully. Neither does Mulder, for that matter. And because of that, I'm going to say boring, nonsensical. You can't see what's on the pictures. If you're going to use pictures as your medium of communication, make sure they can be understood. And then finally, I then read Terminator Secondary Objectives. This one directly follows Tempest, and I understand there's a third book as well, which I've not got. And in this one, the survivors of the first book continue to do their thing, except this time with the secondary objective to try and find Sarah Connor, and another Terminator turns up as well. Well, the first one was exciting, full of action and adventure, and some really good characters. This one really didn't feature anything. Yes, there's lots of explosion and lots of death, but there's no real point to any of it. And there are a few little nuggets of good stuff in here, but where Tempest really furthered the story and added an awful lot to the Terminator lore, this does nothing. Adds nothing new and doesn't even do it well. Boring, just plain dull. So those are the books I've read. On to the books I'm planning to read. First up is The Sacred Vault by Andy McDermott, part of the Nina Wilde and Eddie Chase series, or as I like to call it, the Wild Chase series. I desperately tried to finish it last month, didn't quite manage it, but did finish it this month. So technically it is one I have read, but if I'm pretending this was still the beginning of the month, it's a book I was going to finish reading. But it's the 5th today, so I have read it by now. So after I finished reading that, which I have done, I then moved on to my book of the month, which is Artemis by Andy Weir. I got this from the library. Andy Weir is better known for writing The Martian, which is a book I really enjoyed. So I thought I'd give his other book a go. From what I gather, it's not as good as The Martian, but I'm willing to give it a shot. See what I think of it. No idea what it's about. All I know is Artemis is a moon base, and it follows a character there doing something. Started it last night. It's okay so far. And once I finish that, I'll then move on to Altar of Eden by James Rollins. This was on my TBR for last month. Ran out a month, so now I'm going to read it this month. More archaeology with guns, explosions, getting out of unlikely scenarios. Should be exciting, and looking forward to it. And then once I finish that, I'm on to Assassins by Tim LaHaye and J.B. Jenkins. This is book 6 of the Left Behind series, where our crew are seriously thinking about killing the Antichrist and being assassins. This is a reread chronicling what might happen on Earth after the Rapture, but with a lot of artistic license. And then after that, I'm then going to read Icebones by Stephen Baxter. This is book 3 of the Mammoth trilogy. Really enjoyed the first two, where it's been alluded to in the last 2 books about mammoths being on Mars, and in fact the front cover has a picture of a mammoth on Mars. Hopefully I'll find out about what's it with mammoths being on Mars. We're looking forward to reading this one. And when I finish that, I'm then going to read On Basilisk Station, first book of the Honor Harrington series by David Webber. This will be a reread. I read this a long time ago, but in this reading slot I'm going to go through all of this series as much as I can. Hugely Star Wars in feel, but it's not Star Wars. It follows Honor Harrington as she rises through the ranks of some space navy. She has a cat-like thing. Don't really remember this an awful lot, but I do remember enjoying it, and I've got a whole bunch of the series upstairs, so going to try and get through them. Starting with this one. Quite an optimistic list there. Like I say, I've already finished one of them, or rather finished off one of them. We'll see how I go. I also expect to finish The Walking Dead, The Road to Woodbury by Robert Kirkman and J. Bonan Singer. I've been reading this while boiling the kettle, so I don't get very long to read it each time, but pretty confident I'll finish it this month. Really enjoying it so far. Doesn't really add anything to the Walking Dead series, but it's quite nice. As you may know, I also read to everyone else in the household. So to my children, I'm still reading The Shepherd's Crown by Terry Pratchett, the final Discworld book featuring Tiffany Aching. We're about halfway through that. To my oldest, I'm reading Safari Adventure by Willard Price, about halfway through that. And to my youngest, I'm reading The Last Sky Pirate by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddle, and about halfway through that as part of the Edge Chronicles. And to my wife, I was reading Charmcaster by Sebastian de Castell. This is book 3 of the Spellslinger series. Really enjoyable series featuring Kellen, a failed mage, as he goes from one disastrous encounter to the next. We actually finished this a couple of nights ago. Too late to feature on the September wrap-up and too early to be on the October TBR. But having finished that, I'm now reading Night Walk by Bob Shaw. At 143 pages, it's quite a skinny book, but quite densely packed. So you should get through this in 1 month. And it follows Earth's spy Sam Teller as he is captured by enemy forces and blinded. While in captivity, he is able to fashion a pair of clever spectacles that allows him to see through the eyes of those around him. This is a reread for me, the first for my wife. I really enjoyed this book. I think this is my 3rd reading of it now. I do like Bob Shaw an awful lot, and this is one of his best. And finally, I'm still making my way through the Star Wars Legacy series. Last month I got sidetracked with the X-Files and Terminator graphic novels, but they're out the way now, so hopefully I can get cracking with these again. Really good stuff. Some of the best Star Wars material out there. So there we go. Quite an optimistic stack for this month, and I'll try and remember to do my Artemis video when I finish that. So there you go, I hope you enjoyed that. So do you have a new series you're just about to start? You're planning to get through the whole lot? If you do, then feel free to share below, as well as your wrap-ups and TBRs. So leave a link or a list in the comment section down below and I'll go and check those out. But as usual, if you have nothing nice to say, then please keep it to yourself. Thank you, and until next time, see you later.